everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Burning Out Bush. This is number 2. Oh boy. Always taking it a weird place.
That's right.
But we are so excited to continue this journey. Our first episode is out.
Yes.
And on YouTube and Facebook and, of course, our website. So we are really starting to roll here. As always, I'm Josh Moyer, and this is my co-conspirator.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Co-host, whatever. I'm Rick Grace.
It's awesome to have you guys back with us. If you watched our first episode, we hope you enjoyed it. We got a lot of great feedback, which we'll bring that up later in the show. But today we are going to talk about the calling of being a minister and what that is like and how we got to where we're at now in our ministry journey. And something we'll want to bring up is this a calling or is this a career? What's the difference? So that's something we will have with our guests later, which I'll let Rick here in just a minute introduce who that will be. But I got a question for you, Rick. If you weren't a minister, what would you be?
Man, I've thought about it and tried to figure out what I would do, or if my career plans had to change tomorrow, what I would do. I don't know. Part of me is like, okay, the photography, the media route, I probably could get a job there. Growing up, I wanted to be a pilot. We talked about that. Yep. And so something with that. My mom has wanted me to be a teacher. Like there's all kinds of things, but I don't know. What are your thoughts? What would you do?
I think I shared this in last episode, but I would have been a high school teacher and a coach. That was always the dream. Especially as I got older. Of course, when you're 5 years old, you want to be a NFL player or an NBA player. But when I started thinking about my future seriously, it was teacher and coach. Never even considered ministry. But I can be honest. I'm glad that didn't happen.
Yeah. So today, we're talking with a friend of mine, Jared, who's a minister, and he's got a really interesting story on how we got into ministry. It's different from a lot of people's. But that idea of what else would you do, that reminds me of a piece of advice that I got from a mentor, which is another theme in the show. And he said, I'm going to butcher it, but something along the lines of, if you can do anything other than ministry, do it. And his point was, it is a calling.
That's right.
It is something that is... your whole self goes into ministry. And so if you can find contentment, if you can find like you're fulfilling your purpose in another job, do that.
Yeah. And one thing you'll notice today is this is no different than any other job.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if you're called to be a plumber or an electrician, like there are days you go through that job and you're like, man, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
We have those days where we just go through the stuff and I don't know if I can do ministry anymore. We'll talk about that too.
Yep.
And so we're not all that different. I mean, at the end of the day, we're still human beings and with human emotion.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think about this till just the second, but for a long time, I had this stigma against Christians that if you weren't doing ministry, your life, your career didn't matter. Yeah. And that's not true. That's exactly it took me a long time to kind of realize that. I say a long time. I think it was in college when I started to really process this. So it's been a while now, but we need everybody in the ministry and the world and the what's the word I'm looking for? In the community, in the church. Yeah. We can't all be ministers by vocation.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you're not called to a ministry of your own. Yep. And so it may not look like Josh or I, but whoever's listening to this, you absolutely are called to use your gifts in God's kingdom. And that might be as a plumber. It might be a school bus driver. Shout out to the school bus drivers.
Yes. I was a school bus driver.
We've been there, done that. Did you ever hit a dog? But today we're talking about calling. We're talking about what makes the drive to do ministry different and what that looks like.
That's right. Yeah.
Ready to get into it?
I'm ready to get into it. Let's introduce our guest. Let's get rolling.
Yeah. So here's our interview with Jared. All right. Well, today we are with Jared Mays, and Jared is a longtime friend. I just did the math, and I've known him for about 16 years, which is crazy.
Jared.
I know. Jared is the lead minister at the Southside Church of Christ in Rogers, Arkansas. And this is weird because normally when we're on Zoom together, we're talking about Star Wars. But today we're talking about the church and ministry and all that. So, Jared, how you doing today, man?
Good, good. Except for the fact that just made my hairline creep back just another couple millimeters there with that comment about the age of our friendship. But I'm happy to be talking to y'all today. Good to see you as always, buddy.
Yeah, indeed, man. And you guys need to figure out y'all's connections. I know, Jared, you were born in Oklahoma. How long did you live there?
8 years.
Okay. And then I know you guys are Thunder fans, and trying to think what other things y'all have in common.
I'm sure.
Don't tell me about the score last night. I didn't get to watch the game. I'm gonna watch highlights at lunch.
Oh man, I want to so bad.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to because I'm not that kind of guy.
Well, you kind of are, but
I mean, 8 years. I mean, living in the greatest state in the union.
All right. Well, at least you don't have a hockey team, so I can't talk smack. Yeah,
we do have a hockey team. It's just that no one, even if you live in Oklahoma, has ever heard of them.
Yeah,
I actually grew up going to the minor league hockey team, the Blazers.
Yeah.
My buddy and I would sit right along the glass and we'd harass the players.
Yep.
We would always cheer when they would like shoot a puck at our faces or something.
Yeah.
Good memories.
That was back when the glass was like 5 feet high, and now it's like, they'd send hockey pucks like up at the very top. It was awesome. That was back when they could fight.
Oh,
they
yeah.
still fight in the minors and the majors.
Yeah.
But good stuff. But here today, we're talking about ministry. Unless you wanted to do a Star Wars podcast, what if we just pivot on Josh and just
surprise?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to know anything about Star Wars other than the famous line from Darth Vader, "Luke, I am your father."
Which is technically not even what he says, but that's for another show.
It's true. I was going to say it. I wasn't going to say it.
He wanted to. I could see it in his face. I was like, I said something wrong there because Rick was like,
no, it's a common misconception. So you got the cultural reference correct.
Well, I think the podcast took a turn when Rick introduced you as he's known you for 16 years. So I don't know what's harder, being a minister for as long as you've been or being Rick's friend for 16 years.
Ouch. Yeah, that's fair, though. Jared and I, man, we had freshman Bible at Harding together. I remember sitting in his living room watching The Passion of the Christ, bawling my eyes out.
Good times, man.
Yep. I bought a truck from him. I used to have a truck. Can you believe that?
We don't have to talk about that.
Yeah, that's a different story. But and then now we do a Star Wars.
Now he's got a
podcast.
man van.
And now I have a man van.
Rick has the man van. I am cool.
Yeah,
I drive a grandma car.
You did? You Buick?
No, it's a 04 Toyota Avalon.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I knew that. Your car's fine.
It does the job. Job. I will say, I've known Rick since he had swoopy hair. You know, like the Justin Bieber style swoopy hair.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
If you have pictures, please send them. We'll post them on live for people to watch on the podcast.
I've got some pictures. I'll show you. But yeah, I had long hair. The flow.
Yeah. They named his van, which is blue. I need to start that off, by the way. Shadowfax. And it's a blue van.
That was for camp. That was for camp. No, it was me. It was me.
Was you? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had a Lord of the Rings themed camp, which is the best church camp ever. And I wrote on there, "Show us the meaning of haste" on the windows with window chalk or paint, whatever. Anyway, we're way off topic.
Yes, we are.
Let's talk about ministry.
Yes.
So, Jared, you are unique, in case you didn't know. And specifically, what I'm talking about is a lot of ministers, their trail to ministry kind of meanders, but I've always known you to be a very driven, very focused person who you knew what you wanted to do, and like youth ministry wasn't part of your story, which is a lot for some other people. So kick things off, just take us back to the beginning of your ministry story. What was your story and your journey into ministry?
Yeah, I must have missed that Bible verse that said you have to start in youth ministry before you become a preacher. I don't know.
It's not in
there.
That
was in 3 Peter or something. But I have a really unique story in the sense that I remember the moment I was 5 years old at the Southside Church of Christ in Russellville, Arkansas. The Bible class teacher had a great group of kids. Actually, several of us are in ministry now. The Bible class teacher had asked us what we want to do when we grow up. And I had a 5-year-old existential crisis. I was listening to my classmates' answers. I found them lackluster and unsatisfactory. You know, doctor, lawyer, police officer. Those are all fine professions. Grateful for our law enforcement. But none of them felt right for me. I remember leaving Bible class, going to sit in the pew. My parents saying, "How was Bible class?" And I was like, "Leave me alone." And I sat there just throughout worship thinking, well, like, what am I going to do with my life? And then when the preacher got up, Dan Lightfoot was his name, which small world, he actually, before he went to Russellville, preached here at Southside, where I'm now the preacher,
Nice.
which is cool. He got up in the pulpit and he had this kind, calm demeanor about him. He opened the Word of God. I remember thinking, like, there's hundreds of people here, including, my dad had a really good job. He had a ton of employees. And I'm thinking, like, he listens to what this guy has to say. He commands attention and is able to speak life and truth. And we would leave worship kind of reoriented as a family, saw the way that church brought my family together. And I thought, that's it. Having this ability to lead and to proclaim and to say something that matters and makes a difference in people's lives. I had a really clear moment in which I felt the call to ministry. Now, I think that is probably unconventional for many, and we can talk about that. But that initial spark was very clear for me at a very young age, and I pretty much never deviated from that.
Wow.
Other than that year or so in high school when I was in a heavy metal band, but that's another story for another podcast.
Nice. Yep.
Crazy. I was in a screamo band in college, so we have that in common.
And I was a fanboy. I was a videographer and like tech guy for a metal band.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Jared, remind me to send you my metal EP I made with AI.
Yeah.
Oh, fun. The good thing about my very short-lived heavy metal career is it was in the era in which all of our cell phones made just absolutely abysmal recordings. Especially video quality was atrocious, sound quality was atrocious, and there was no good way to get files off those old phones.
Yeah.
And so I know there's footage, but I'm pretty sure it didn't survive.
Yeah.
Which is probably a good thing.
2 pixels or something. Yeah. Nice.
That's funny. Rick,
Wow.
what'd you want to be when you were 5 years old?
I wanted to be a helper. I remember I came up with this really clever acronym. I don't know if this is 5 or older, but I wanted to offer free counseling. I have a business called ACE, Advice and Counseling for Everyone. And
At 5?
I learned soon after, I don't know if it's 5 or around then, but I knew, I was like, it's going to be free. No one's going to have to pay for it. And everyone was like, okay.
I don't doubt that for a second. I believe you.
Well, thanks.
I thought I was going to be a 7-foot-tall NBA player.
Oh, well, that checks out too. Yeah.
How tall are you? Did the 7 feet thing work out for you?
No, it did not. I'm 5'10" and proud of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, especially working next to Rick. It makes me feel taller.
It is fun whenever I have a short preacher, but I've not had one in a while, so.
Yeah. No, me and Rick can almost look each other in the eye.
Almost.
It's a good relationship.
But when I have the disadvantage, I'll just punch him in the gut real quick or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. So, well, Jared, that's exciting that you've had that vision, and I was going to ask you about if you ever deviated from it, but it sounds like you pretty focused, which is cool.
I knew that I wanted to do it. Didn't really have a good idea on how to accomplish it or how to move toward a career in ministry. I didn't necessarily even know how to get started on that track, other than I knew I would probably go to a Christian college and major in Bible and figure it out from there. But then we had a retired minister at our congregation in Oklahoma when I was a kid who learned about the Oklahoma Preacher Training Camp. He gave me a brochure for this. He said, I'll pay your way to go. And thankfully was able to attend that camp for 4 or maybe 5 years, 1-week camp in the summers, in which case I had the opportunity to spend a week with like-minded guys, learning about preaching, getting opportunities to preach, and getting guidance on how to craft sermons, and then practice getting up in the pulpit and refining our ideas, refining our style, showcasing different ministry, different preaching styles, bringing in great guest speakers. And that was a huge push toward ministry. I was grateful that I had that opportunity, and I've participated in leading a camp much like that ever since, on the campus of Harding University, called the Caruso Experience.
Yeah, so, let's talk more about that.
That's a big part of my story too.
Why don't you jump into it? What is Caruso? Who is it for, and all that?
Sure. Yeah. The Caruso Experience is a 1 week camp on the campus of Harding University that we've done since 2013. I developed it when I was a student there at Harding alongside Dr. Devin Swindle and Dr. Phil Thompson in the Center for Preaching at Harding. We've now had hundreds of students over the years. We even did a camp in St. Louis for a few summers as well. Had some great students in that St. Louis camp, especially. It's an opportunity for these guys to come and have kind of like honor symposium, if you're familiar with that model, where you come and before your senior year of high school, have this opportunity to basically be a Harding student, be a college student for a couple of weeks, taking some classes, getting to know your classmates, getting away from home, that sort of thing. Except for we provided specifically a very focused, intentional camp for young ministers, for people thinking about ministry, or even just want to come and become a better public speaker. We've got a daily in-depth Bible class over a different book of the Bible every year, so that they're kind of getting a college-level Bible experience. We'll do Philippians or Jonah, Minor Prophets, Sermon on the Mount, something like that. I believe this summer will be Philippians. Dr. Kevin Burr, good friend of mine and Rick's, is going to be teaching that for us. And so then every afternoon they've got a preaching class where we sit down as the staff and help them write their sermons in small groups, because there's nothing harder than just staring at a blank piece of paper and trying to figure out where to start. So then they get opportunities to get up and practice, and we do lots of fun field trips, getting out of the classroom. Very collaborative, great way to get to know other like-minded young men. Really proud to have been a part of it all these years.
That's awesome, man. Okay, so is it rising seniors and juniors, or just seniors?
No, that was honor symposium. This is actually for any high school aged young man. So it's entering your freshman year of high school up through graduated seniors.
Cool.
And just about every year we've got the whole spectrum represented. It's been a diverse camp. We've had great racial diversity at the camp. We'll have students from typically as many as 8 states that attend. Wow. And we've now expanded to 2 sessions each summer, right around the 4th of July.
Okay.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see if we can send some students, because I know we have a couple who are thinking about ministry, and that'd be really good for them.
Yeah. I noticed you said something about even for the ones that aren't going to become ministers, they go there and just learn how to be better public speakers. And someone who has served in youth ministry a long time, I've had students go to preacher training camps that I knew and they knew really never had an intention to grow up and be a minister, but they always came back with a really nice confidence level where maybe before they went, it was kind of tough to get them to even say a prayer, and now they come back and they've just they come back leaders. And I think that's something we need more in the church for sure, is even if you're not going to be a minister, it's nice to have men that will step up and do things. And you can always tell the ones when they were younger were pushed a little harder, because you ask them to say a prayer even, and they're like, oh, absolutely. They don't need time to prepare anything, and they just got a little more confidence. So I do appreciate that about all of the preacher training camps. I know most of the kids I had would go to Louisville, and they have a training camp down there. But I appreciate what you do. I think it's awesome.
Thank you. And this is born out of that model. I had the opportunity to visit Louisville on a couple of occasions. And so there was a crew of guys that were kind of planting these, and I would consider myself in that strain, in that tradition. Mm-hmm. They've done great work there, and really respect kind of making this investment in the next generation of church leadership. And, to your point, Josh, most of the guys that attend these camps will not become full-time preachers. And that's not even necessarily the point. We do a lot of teaching them about being godly men, a lot of training in character and ethics. We do a lot of talking about living out the scriptures and knowing the Bible well. And I'm really proud of the ones that have entered ministry. Certainly, that is a big goal of what we're trying to accomplish. And yet over the years, we've realized this serves the church in more than just filling pulpits.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're absolutely right. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
Thank you.
We'll come back to some ideas for the future and the generations to come in ministry. But Jared, you've been in ministry for over a decade, and it's been almost your life plan. But I'm curious, how quickly did the real world parts of ministry start to challenge your goal and your dream?
My path to ministry was, I think, an old school model. I think this is like the Jimmy Allen model of right out of college, started a small country church as the preacher.
Right.
I think to your point earlier, Rick, the more common model now is perhaps starting in youth ministry, which in a lot of ways is good because you have that support structure, you've got mentors, and also you have the enthusiasm that is often needed for youth ministry.
Yeah.
But I started a small church down in South Arkansas, just fantastic folks, the best church there ever was for training a young minister and helping them to get their feet wet and loving them and supporting them. And boy, did they have to sit through some insufferable sermons. I've looked back at those old manuscripts, but they were just so patient and affirming. And I had some really good leaders, elders, deacons, men in the congregation who would take me under their wing, and they'll say, let's talk about that sermon. And I remember I did one time that was a really, really bad idea, and it was a little bit political. And they weren't angry with me. They weren't harsh. They weren't aggressive. Let's go out to eat. I want to have you over to the house, have a cup of coffee, and kind of talking me through, some of those decisions that I had made and how to serve the church well. And I'm really grateful for the way that they saw me through that. Sometimes it was like, let's go deer hunting. Sometimes it was, hey, let me help you dig a garden, teaching me some real world life skills. But thankfully that church was a great opportunity, great training ground. I got to experience, how to work under an eldership, how to help people through marital struggles, how to do a Bible study with a non-Christian, and how to teach them about the way of Christ and how to come to know the Lord. You name it, I got to experience that there. I would say that the biggest, punch in the face really finally hit the wall of the real world, some hard experiences that challenged my faith and my commitment to ministry was at age 25. This is right about 10 years ago. My mom died unexpectedly. And that was right when we were about to move to Massachusetts, where I was going to start a new preaching job. So moving across the country, new culture, people I don't know at all, to become their preacher when I myself felt like I'd had the rug pulled out from under me. I was having a lot of questions about my faith. It wasn't so much that I questioned the existence of God as much as I had just finished preaching a sermon series from Romans and had preached this sermon from Romans 8. If God is for us, who could be against us? And I felt like God was against me. And trying to navigate that and still do ministry was really, really tough. I'm grateful for the way the church saw me through that and gave me the avenue to just continue to serve as best as I could. And what's amazing is that first year in Massachusetts, though I myself felt so lost, was I think a really bright spot in my ministry. We had so many good things happening in that church. We had some growth. The church was excited and enthusiastic. And so God was doing so many good things even through my pain. And I love to look back on that now and see the way that he was able to, God took the reins. I don't get any of the credit for how good things were going in that first year there. And so I had a good ministry mentor come alongside me and talk to me about his own faith struggles that he had. He was a listening ear, gave me a book, word of advice that really was the pivotal turning point, probably 2 years into that faith struggle that I had that helped me get back on my feet and felt like I could breathe again. And so I'm grateful that I had a good ministry mentor. It goes to show that if you're struggling, you need to talk to people about it. Preachers don't often have that. Ministers, I'll say, Rick, it's not just preachers. Yeah. It can be hard to have those confidants. And I'm so grateful that I was able to have somebody to help me work through that.
Yeah. I've had moments like that. Early on in my ministry career, I got cancer, and I had that same thought. Like, one of the thoughts that just kept protruding in my mind, and even verbally as I yelled up at the sky, is like, why me? Like, I'm a minister. I'm doing this for you, and why am I? I felt like I was getting punished for something. But so yeah, I think a lot of ministers have that feeling of then when we go through a valley, it's like, man, God, what's going on here? And we spend our whole time preaching or teaching about having faith, and then we get rocked sometimes, but yeah, that hits home with me like quite well.
I don't preach that often, but not every time, but very often when I preach, I have just major imposter syndrome of, what gives me the right to stand up here and say these things when, I've got my doubts or I've got my struggles or things where it's like, I mean, some topics are easier than others, but you get what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of weight from all that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what's the word? It's the Spirit. That's where the authority lies. And
for sure,
God's power is made perfect through our weakness. And,
that's right.
And that's a verse that I live by. I've got chronic back pain, and I've got my own issues that I have to work through. I've had challenges in ministry that I won't talk about on this podcast.
Right.
And yet, the commitment is to Christ. It's
right.
a calling from the Lord, and faithfulness has to come first. Because I'll say this, every job has its struggles, secular or in the church. Everybody is going to have bosses they don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's going to have bad days at work. You're going to have conflict with your coworkers. But we get to serve the Lord for a living. We get to study the Bible.
That's right.
It's a great job. It's a great way to spend a life, even in the hard days. I remember back in that very first ministry job in the small town in Arkansas, I had a buddy who was looking for a job, and he was thrilled when he got a job working 12-hour days in South Arkansas heat pouring concrete. And he sent me pictures of his job. And I was sitting in my air-conditioned office in khaki pants and a polo shirt, studying the Bible, and I thought, well, I need to be more grateful for this job.
Yeah. No one can tease a minister like a blue-collar guy. That's for sure. You'll get the text like, man, I would love to have minister hours. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a blessing, but there's definitely the unseen parts. So that's
exactly right.
Something we're trying to do.
So we'll have a youth minister episode eventually, and I know we will talk about mentorship because, that's just kind of synonymous with having a young guy. You got to have a mentor, but something you've mentioned a couple of times, Jared, is the fact that even as a guy that got directly into preaching, you've surrounded yourself with mentors. And so how important has that been just in your career as a full-time minister?
I mean, it's been everything. It's been absolutely everything. I've had, and this is in so many ways my passion for training the next generation of ministers in churches of Christ is because I've had so many fantastic, wonderful, godly men pour into me.
That's right.
And I want to help foster that in the next generation as well. I think about I think about mentors that I had at Harding. My father-in-law, Sean Daggett, has been one for me. I got to a big turning point in my life was having a class with Dr. Ken Neller, who passed away less than a year after Rick and I had him for class. Really invested in me. There's so many others. I got to have an internship under Robert Oglesby, who was the preacher at the Waterview Church of Christ in Richardson, Texas for I think 52 years, could have been 54, and talking to me about how he had longevity in ministry. So many people who have helped shepherd me and mentor me along the way. Mike Cope has been one of those guys for me, and would want to be that for others. And so having somebody to call when I'm going through a ministry crisis and say, I don't know what to do here, what would you do? Help talk me off the ledge. And Rick and I, he's not a mentor. We're colleagues. We're brothers, and we're that for each other, among other people, that we can say, hey, I'm going through a hard time and I need prayers. And what would you do? And Rick never takes my advice, but at least he lets me give it from time to time.
Honestly, I'm probably at Leak Street because of you, Jared.
Is hopefully that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It is a good thing.
For sure.
I could feel like his body tense when you said, I hope that's a good thing. Like he's like, okay, what's Josh going to say now? But it is a good thing. I'm glad. And Rick is a good speaker. Like we're
recording, right?
Yes. Sometimes his confidence is low. I don't know if that's his personality, but he is going to be a really good preacher. And I hope he doesn't waste that staying in other positions too long. 'Cause I think he's got a lot to say, and he's very smart. But
thanks.
Yeah.
That being said, let's bring it back to calling because we know we picked on youth ministers a little bit.
Yep.
And there is a legitimate calling for other lanes other than preaching. And so, Jared, what do you think being called to ministry really means, especially in our tribe where that feels like a nebulous, spiritual, abstract thing? What does it mean to be called?
Yeah, in our tradition, we're more rational than we are experiential, which is funny because I'm doing some research right now about Barton Stone and the Cane Ridge revival. And so there is this other part of our heritage that's less rational and more experiential. And I'd like for us to get more in touch with that. Though I am as textbook, straight-laced, hyper organized as it comes, our sense of calling is primarily ecclesial. So we think about the way that the church affirms a person's call to ministry. Even my story of I was 5 years old and I felt a very clear, firm call to ministry, it's subjective and it makes us uncomfortable. It makes me uncomfortable to even talk about it. Thankfully, my story is not just that one moment, but I was encouraged by the church. I was invested in over time. I had such great Bible class teachers at my home churches growing up that taught me scripture, that fanned into flame the gift of God. That's some biblical language for us from 2 Timothy chapter 1, that we have fewer experiences like the Old Testament examples of Abraham, Moses, Barak, Gideon, Isaiah, and Amos, who the Lord speaks directly to them, calls them to get up and accomplish a specific mission. Our stories are much more similar to what we find in the New Testament, less like Saul and more like Timothy, right? Who hears the preaching of Paul on Paul's missionary journey in Acts 16. He wants to join up with Paul. So there's something subjective in him that wants to go and do this, but then is encouraged, it's shepherded. He's got this mentor who invests in him. And then I love the language there in 2 Timothy chapter 1, who recognized where this started and then how it progresses in Timothy. He says, he thanks God for Timothy's grandmother Lois and his mother Eunice. So they had a sincere faith that he says they passed on to them, that now dwells in you. I remind you, verse 6, to fan into flame the gift of God, which is, now here's where God's power comes into all this, which is in you through the laying on of my hands, for God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. So there's a divine element, and yet there's this human element of people investing and saying, I see something in you, and yet you've got a ways to go. Let's work on this, and I'm going to help you. And so for me, I had so many people who came alongside me and said, I want to help you. I see that you feel this call. You want to go this direction. And so it did take, quite a few people along the way to help keep me on that path and encourage me and empower me. And I think that that's most often the way that it works. So it's a combination of factors. There's this, and I think we need more teaching on spiritual giftedness. Maybe 1 Corinthians 12, Ephesians 4, maybe we're afraid of the charismatic nature of those passages that talk about the miraculous gifts of the Holy Spirit. That's a whole conversation for another time, but I think we need to be doing a lot more equipping our congregations for understanding and utilizing their spiritual giftedness. Thinking about the fact that God gifts the church with what the church needs to accomplish the mission that God gives us. And so are we going to sit on those gifts, or are we going to do something with them? So I like to think about spiritual giftedness, calling to ministry as a part of that picture. Thinking about spiritual gifts more as ministries and less as skill sets and temperaments.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
That's a good way to look at it. I know we'll talk in a second about the shortage we're experiencing in ministers across the board, from youth ministry to preachers and all that. I don't know. I can think of at least one family where there was a student where as his youth minister, I saw that he had what it takes. He could have been a great minister, but his parents discouraged him from ministry and talked him out of it, which is frustrating. I mean, I get it. I won't get into their decision too much, but Jared, from your perspective, what are some of the main reasons we're seeing a shortage of ministers? At least in our tribe. I know the other tribes are dealing with it too, but what do you think is causing that, or what are your ideas and hopes for the future?
Yeah, on a broad level, there is a crisis of authority. We're an enlightenment culture. We distrust leaders inherently. We're taught to distrust leaders. There have been really bad examples of ministers who have abused power that I think have burned some people out. That's why we who are in ministry need to have great character, and we need to model transparency and humility. So there have been some negative influences along the way. I think that in Churches of Christ, we have a healthy model most of the time compared to the denominational world.
Sure.
Which is that we don't localize and centralize pastoral authority in one person who can abuse that power. Yeah. We have a board, if you want to call it that, of godly elders who meet scriptural requirements to shepherd the church God's way. And ministers fit into that as people who use their gifts to serve the church. Mm-hmm. And that can create its own power dynamics that are not always good. Don't get me wrong. But I think in general, we have a biblical, godly system that works. Mm-hmm. And I think that we need to lean into that and celebrate it. And we need to model what good ministry elder relationships look like. We need to celebrate our ministers in our churches within reason, and model for our young people why this is a good path and why it's needed for the world, that people would hear the good news. We have to believe a theological conviction that the gospel is truly good news that the world needs to hear. And it's got to start there. Our belief has to be in the gospel, and we need to strengthen that conviction. I think we can get distracted, especially, in our history in Churches of Christ, we can get distracted by issues that are not central to the core tenets of our faith. We need to get back to the gospel, that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, that he loved us with a radical love that the world needs to know. All right, I'll stop preaching to say this, that we need more opportunities as well for our young people to get good, positive, early experiences with ministry. Mm-hmm. One of the big shifts with this has been Sunday nights. Do you guys still have Sunday nights at League Street?
Yes, we do. We have a couple of weeks we do small groups, what we call connect groups here. We have a Sunday night where we just come together and we sing and learn songs, and we'll have someone teach us those songs, a little music with that as well, as far as teaching us notes and things, not and then our fourth Sunday of the month is just our typical traditional Sunday night, worship. So
okay, so you've got a hybrid model.
We do have a hybrid model.
That's traditional on the one hand and yet small groups on the other.
Yes.
And I think that's great. That shows the adaptability of your congregation, rooted in our heritage, and yet moving forward to serve the church well, in a way that adapts to modern circumstances. One of the big casualties in Churches of Christ of the pandemic has been Sunday night services.
Yeah.
Many of our churches, I don't have the statistics on this. I'm sure Rick is looking them up right now. Many of our churches dropped Sunday nights during the pandemic and haven't brought them back. Sunday nights traditionally have been a lower stakes worship service, in which case our young men can get opportunities to lead singing, to lead prayers, and even from time to time to preach. Rick, as a former youth minister, did you ever lead youth-led services?
Yeah, a couple times, which actually, this is one of my weird hills to die on.
Here we go. Pandora's box has been opened. This is therapy time with Rick.
Okay.
Hey, we have that segment on another podcast.
Yeah. Well, you don't get to hear it now. I'm just gonna.
I should have a deeper voice.
I understand why we push young people to use their gifts on Sunday nights, but to me, that always just kind of undercuts the value that we're placing in them, because they also see Sunday nights as low stakes. And so
Okay.
I think putting them on a Sunday morning, even though they're going to make mistakes, even though they're going to mess up and be uncomfortable, I think that shows trust, shows that we're giving them the keys of the future, and it also shows our church and the community that we are a church that empowers your young people.
Yep.
Sure.
So I've got a whole spiel about that, but
That's a
I
fine
do think
counterpoint.
any kind of exposure, any kind of opportunity, I think is good.
Yeah.
So,
This is one of those things where we probably differ a little bit. So I started as youth minister as well. I had a young man who I thought was a really good young man, had a future. And I said, hey, do you want to give a lesson one Sunday night? And his immediate response to that was not yes or no. It was, can I do Sunday night? And so I asked him, I said, well, why Sunday night? He goes, because I'd rather mess up in front of 60 people than 150.
Yeah, and that would be my point, is it's kind of maybe where you would start in order to get them those reps, get those experience so that they can, hey, you want your quarterbacks to get some reps in the preseason.
sure.
That's right.
Before you put them on Monday Night Football.
That's
I
exactly
know that Rick's a big NFL fan, so.
Yay, football.
He knows about as much about football as I do about Star Wars. So
Regardless,
Actually, I probably know more about football than you know about Star Wars.
regardless of whether or not our churches still have Sunday night services, my point is this: we still need to be finding opportunities to give our young people our support
absolutely.
and the encouragement to say that we need you and we care about shepherding you into church leadership. And it's not just about who gets up in worship services. There's other opportunities we've got to be thinking about, perhaps mentoring groups. I know a church that I used to worship with now has an intergenerational women's ministry where they're intentional about having the younger women with the older women, getting to know each other, investing in them. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So we need more of these opportunities for our young people. I think that the model of having, where's my soapbox? The model of we put all the teens in a corner in the other building with no adult supervision
Yep.
and trust them with an outside expert to take charge of their spiritual development is not only unbiblical, but it's harmful for the church.
Yeah.
I agree.
And so we've got to do some reforming concerning youth ministry. I'm a big believer in youth and family ministry that is equipping the parents to teach the Bible to their kids.
Yeah. Oh, you're exactly right.
Yep.
I'm trying not to like chase squirrels here, but I'm like, maybe that's one of our downfalls is we have just really prioritized Sunday morning over Sunday night. And in my mind, it's any time we can get together and worship is a time of value and of importance. I get the grandness of Sunday morning worship, but maybe
Something
that's
to think about for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
And I say this as a guy where we don't have Sunday night services, so I'm just ranting.
Nor do you have to.
Yeah. So I have seen some statistics on churches that have nixed Sunday nights have actually they've elevated on Sunday morning, not just in a number, but in other areas as well as, discipleship and other things of that nature. So
Yeah, and I'll say,
Interesting.
hey, we love getting our teens involved in worship. I need them. I make the worship schedule for who's doing the scripture readings and the Lord's Supper and these kinds of things. And having a young man, 13, 14, who's willing to step up and serve, I'm so thankful. And you know what? Every time they get up there, the church is excited. We've got like a second grader who likes to get up and do scripture readings. The church is juiced when he gets up there.
Yeah.
I wish I got half the support that he does.
Right.
yeah, we have a fifth grader here that is probably the best praying person in our whole congregation. Very analytical in his thought, and
Yep.
of course he'll write it down before he goes up there, which is fine. I think that's great. It's a good experience. But man, it's like every time he goes up on stage for anything, like LTC last year, Cooper Portwood, shout out Cooper, he'll love that. But he did a lesson at LTC. He's fourth grade, and they're like begging him to do something on Sunday. But then they're like, well, we may not be able to because your lesson really didn't match the LTC thing. But it just blew the people that were there listening to him away. So, yeah, we have someone just like that.
Yep.
Yeah, and LTC is one of those good opportunities for leadership training for Christ. For those listening, if you're not familiar, it's a youth competition in different categories related to church leadership. There's puppets. Shout out to the puppets.
Yeah.
Big believer in puppets up in here. That's some crossover with Star Wars. There's puppets in Star Wars,
There
right?
are puppets in Star Wars.
Hey, when you're not on the podcast with Rick later, I want you to maybe text him or call him and ask him about his recent puppet experience.
Oh, I've heard about it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you believe me? I know. Oh, I know. But we've got to have these opportunities, whether they're LTC or Sunday nights, Sunday mornings, to invest in our young people, give them opportunities to try and to fail. I remember I got up to lead a prayer. It's probably 10 years old. Wednesday night, I got up there behind the mic and I said, "Will you play with me, please?" And I made eye contact with my buddy Daniel, and he was dying. And I just bowed my head and led the prayer, and he never let me live it down. But you know what?
Funny.
It didn't scare me away.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, the church is stuck with me.
That's awesome. Hey, Jared, I got a question for you. I'm a young man looking to. I'm only 39. I'm a young man looking to get into ministry, and I'm coming to you to ask your honest opinion and advice on should I do that or not? I have real concerns. Maybe.
Oh, this is hypothetical.
Yeah, this is hypothetical.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, hypothetical. Sorry. Maybe I'm a preacher's kid, and I've watched my dad take abuse over the years, at least in my perception. But I still love the message, and I love what he does. But I have concerns. Like, what would your advice be to me? Is it worth getting into? Is it give me the real, raw, honest answer? That's the kind of guy I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, first of all, the Bible teaches us to pray for wisdom, to ask for it. I don't think we do enough of that. I think if you're trying to make a difficult decision, no matter what it is, if it's what school to send your kid to, or if you should take a job, or something like a career path, this is a big decision. It's got to involve prayer. It's something that you've got to go to God to. Asking for godly advice, for my wisdom, will get you so far, but seeking the counsel of the Lord is more important. I want to encourage people who are thinking about a call to ministry to be prayerful about it and to ask that God would direct their path. I've got somebody here at church right now that's having that conversation, and I'm being careful not to steer him to follow in my footsteps because I'm domineering, but because he feels called. He understands this as his calling. I would say that don't let a bad apple spoil the whole bunch. It's a cliche, and yet I think we are looking for excuses all the time to get out of all sorts of things that God would call us to. We're looking for excuses to cancel service when there's snow outside. We're always looking for an easy excuse, and I think that following Jesus means sometimes we have to go through hard things because Jesus didn't call us to comfort. He called us to follow him. Okay, so that doesn't mean that every single person in the world needs to go into ministry.
Right.
What I would say is, your dad's experience is not necessarily going to be reflective of yours. I would say that the most incredible, loving, genuine people I've ever known in my entire life have been people that I've met in the church. The most profound, powerful love I've ever seen have been the most humble, generous, kind, not flashy, Christ-like followers that are sitting in the pew on Sunday morning. I've also had some hard things that have happened, some really ugly, evil, mean-spirited things that have come from people that I've met in church.
Yep.
Both are true, but we're not serving people, we're serving the Lord.
That's right.
And so is the gospel what motivates us? Is a sense of using your giftedness for honoring God more important than your own personal comfort? That it's really got to come down to that. And so then I would say, okay, well, let's talk about how to get you some productive, encouraging experience in ministry. And so that's where I might direct somebody to something like Caruso, attending a 1-week camp where people are encouraging you, uplifting you, you're making friends, you're being inspired by Scripture. That's a great environment to kind of get your feet wet. You can get up behind the pulpit, you can preach a little bit, you can realize like, oh, maybe public speaking is my greatest fear on planet Earth, well, then you might want to think about a different career.
Yeah.
Or you get up there and you realize, oh, this is what I was born to do. Okay, that's a great opportunity to kind of get some experience there. That's where I would say seek out godly counsel from people in your life. Of course, prioritizing prayer first. But I would say there's opportunities. There's internships, different ways to, even if you're an engineering major in college, you could get a youth ministry internship. And churches are eager for people who are willing to show up and help and open the Bible with their young people and chaperone their kids on a trip and just love them and play games with them. And it's a great opportunity to realize, I love ministry. Yeah. Or to realize this is the worst thing on planet Earth. You'll get a pretty clear sense of it one way or the other.
One or the other, yeah.
So, yeah, one person's experience is not reflective of yours.
I totally agree.
I've got a follow-up question. This is kind of philosophical. And maybe this is an unfair question, I guess, but do you think ministry is a career, or is it a calling? Is ministry something different? I know this is a conversation usually that comes up with conversations about minister compensation or stuff like that. I'm not trying to go there, but just is ministry different than just a job?
Absolutely, 100% a calling. And I think that the future for most churches of Christ is going to be bivocational ministry. It's going to be people who have a desire to serve the church that superimposes their own desire for making a career out of it. You might need to find compensation elsewhere. Learning a trade is going to be something that's going to be a path for many. And it's something we're encouraging at Caruso. And I've seen a lot of our guys who are now, kind of the early adopters of our program who now have young families, many of whom working secular jobs. One of them attends here with us at Southside. He has a job that is not in ministry, and yet about once a month, he presides over the Lord's Supper. I know that I can count on him at any turn to lead a prayer when needed. He's somebody who will step up, and you know what? He's still loving people in his career. He's still shining the light of Christ. It's not any lesser than what I do. So I do consider it a calling. I think there's a difference between being driven and being called. Being driven is often ego. Being called comes from the Lord, and understanding that. And those things can get out of focus and out of whack.
Yep.
And so, if you do get the opportunity to attend a Christian college, you'll get to take some courses on leadership and ministry, and you'll get to do some great reading about distilling your calling and understanding your giftedness. And I would say one thing that I came across with one of my professors that has been a huge life changer for me to help understand that my call for ministry that is more important than any sense of burnout that I might feel from time to time, which is natural. Dr. Youngblood, Kevin Youngblood, teaches at Harding. He had this devotional thought about Ezekiel. How good are you with your Hebrew, Rick? You know what Ezekiel means?
Nope, not good at all my Hebrew.
It means that strengthened by God. God has strengthened. And so Dr. Youngblood gave this devotional about what happens if we try to strengthen ourselves for ministry. Well, what we end up with is hard hearts and weak skin, easily offended, easily upset, easily agitated, and bitter toward the world. We make ourselves hard. If we make ourselves hard, we end up calloused and bitter. But if we let God strengthen us, we get the reverse. Ezekiel, God has strengthened, which is we have thick skin and a soft heart. And I believe that's that kind of focus, letting God strengthen you, is the antidote for ministry burnout. Thinking about maintaining an empathy and compassion for people, but the kind of thick skin that can handle some of those surface level hurts. Because they're going to happen. They're inevitable. They absolutely will. I did not understand that when I entered ministry. I had to learn those things the hard way. And thankfully, over time, God has softened my hard heart, and I've still got a long way to go.
Man, good word.
It is.
I'm processing. I always do this. Every time we have a
Yes.
discussion, I have to like just sit there and stew for a minute and think.
You're a deep thinker, Rick.
I'm a slow deep thinker, though. Josh, any questions? Anything you want to follow up with?
No, I think everything you said is spot on. I do think we need to be as honest as we can with guys. You kind of mentioned there were some things you just didn't know. There is no self-help book, or what was the little yellow book back in the I can't remember what it's called, but it was like I'll think of it later. But anyway, I think we need to be honest.
Like the something for dummies.
Yes, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, that's
Preaching
what it was.
for dummies.
Yeah,
Like
ministry for
web
dummies.
coding for dummies. Right.
Yeah, that's right. Anyone younger than 35 probably has no idea what we're talking about there, but or 30. We'll say 30.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right on. I think we do need to be honest. I'm one of those guys. I guess I don't know if it was growing up in sports or in those competitive environments where I just want you to don't sugarcoat it. Just tell me what it is. And I think guys, it's something I've done in the past, even with young guys that aren't built like me, where I've said, this is not something you can go into lightly. That you can just look at the guy on stage and think, man, how awesome is that? No, that's the whole reason for this podcast is there's a life for guys outside of the classroom and off that stage on Sunday mornings where 95% of your ministry happens. And you know what? Leadership will be ugly sometimes. Congregants will be ugly sometimes. You're going to be ugly sometimes because you're just going to get to a point where you're tired of wearing all the weight, right? And so that goes back to staying prayerfully engaged with our Father and staying engaged in the Word, because we have an entire book, and you mentioned some guys earlier, we have an entire book about men that carried the weight, that went through tough times, and the common denominator through all of that was what? It was God, and leaning on Him and learning through Him, watching His Son who faced all of the same things, the ugliness from leadership, the ugliness from his friends, the ugliness, and yet he's still able to do what he did. And then there's Paul and guys like that. So even through all the ugliness, there is something so beautiful there that we have been called to do. And I do think when we use the word career, that's just us kind of involving our societal experience and making that. But yeah, I think that the calling is something that we focus on. And you said something really profound earlier. We are here above all to serve God. Love God, love people, and there's a reason that order exists. Yeah. And so, but yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
Man,
it is tough to tell everybody up front that we want you to do ministry. This is a good thing, but also it can be hard. And that goes back to the point that every career, every profession, it's got its challenges. You're going to have bad days. Yeah. And so understanding a sense of what has God put you on earth to do, how can you best use your gifts and callings to serve the church? What is it that the world needs that you're good at? What if people in the church said, I see something in you? It chances are, if you're not meant for ministry, people will tell you one way or the other. Yeah.
Yep. No, you're right. And maybe, I don't know what that conversation is like, but maybe there are some of those conversations we need to have where first thing I had to learn was you better have thick skin. That's for sure. But I think I taught myself that by and I'm still learning. Rick can testify to that. But like, instead of just outright getting upset, I've got to teach myself to what's gone on in their day that's got them where they're at, and how can I interject in a positive way. But I'm sure we'll talk about. We got a episode coming up where we're going to talk about relationships like that, congregants, things like that.
Yeah.
So
good.
Very good.
I'll have to listen.
Yeah. Jared, thanks for coming on and talking with us. I mean this as a compliment, but we talk Star Wars so much. I know you're a Christian, but sometimes I can forget that you're a minister because you're just a person, and it's really cool to hear your thoughts on the world we work in every day, and all that. Man, you got a lot of wisdom.
Well, it's good to be able to blow off steam. We talk about Star Wars. You need to have friends.
Yeah.
Ministers need to have need to have friends, and not everything needs to be always work. With anything, if you're always working all the time, you'll burn out. So having avenues and opportunities to invest in something that is wholesome and good for you, something that's not a vice, that is a way to channel and be encouraged, channel some of that pent up energy sometimes into something productive. So grateful that we've had that on our show, Legends Look Back.
Oh, there's the plug.
There's the plug.
Hey, we appreciate you being on today, and I'm glad we got to sit and talk and meet each other for the first time. So he told me who you were, so I got to be honest. I went on. I'm an investigative guy, so I'm like, I got to see it. So you were on a podcast. I think you were still in Massachusetts. It was the Faith and something. I can't remember what it was
Faith
called.
in the Folds with Kevin Burr. Dr.
So
Kevin
I was
Burr,
like,
we mentioned him earlier.
Yeah, I like this guy. So I appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you. Nice to get to talk to you guys.
Yeah. All right, Jared. I'll see you later, man.
See you, man.
Bye.
All right, so we had a good talk with Jared, and like we always say, I got a process. He said a lot of really good things. What are some of the things that stood out to you?
I think one of the first things that stood out to me was he kept throughout the whole meeting with one another, he kept going back to those men in his life that have really shaped who he is, from, starting at 5 years old, watching the guy on stage, and then having the former minister that was, hey, I want to send you to this preaching school. So he's had some guys that shape him, and I think we could all look back and find those guys. But I think the biggest impacts were the men that he's had in his life since being ministers, or being a minister. And I can relate to that. You can relate to that.
Yeah.
Mentorship is something, and, mentioned it in the interview, that we often kind of label youth ministers have to have mentors. And while I agree with that, ministers have to have ministers in their life. I mean, he mentioned you got to have friends. And I think some of your most important friends are going to be friends that are doing the same thing that you're doing, because you can relate so well. And so just the importance on mentorship. And I think probably going throughout the rest of the season, because we do what we do, mentorship is probably going to get brought up in just about every episode, if I was guessing. Because no matter what you're dealing with, you're going to be going to those guys that are that you can vent to and things like that. So that really stood out to me, is that a lot of times we just equate, well, the preacher's the mentor to the youth guy, or no, we all have people in our lives that keep us held accountable and heading in the right path and talk us off the proverbial ledge from time to time. And so that really just hit home with me in that as well. But
it's not, you can learn from people younger. I get prideful about that, but there's times when I've learned from people who are younger than me and are mentors, even though they're, usually it's older folks or people with more experience, but really mentors that's something that does, I think, cross over the vocational, barrier to people who aren't ministry listening. No matter what field you're in, mentors are important, and there's some careers that do it way better. I'm always encouraged by some of the churches that take on the apprentice or that kind of model, where they're a long-term teaching learning role. That's really cool. It's what interns are supposed to be, not just busybodies and grunt workforce, but supposed to be somebody who you're teaching them how to do what you do. But
there's a lot of, I know our focus is ministry, but you're exactly right. I mean, you can't be a plumber unless you have an apprenticeship. You can't be an electrician without that apprenticeship. You don't as a police officer, you don't graduate, get hired, and they put you in a car by yourself. No, you go through your field training, and you have someone ride with you, and hospitals. I mean, there's mentorship all over the place. So,
all right, bring it full circle again.
There we go.
We need it in the church.
We do.
That's discipleship.
That's exactly right.
It's not supposed to be get baptized and figure it out on your own. It's, you got an older brother or older, a family in the church that's supposed to take care of you, and we're supposed to take care of each other. And man, all right, we can get preaching.
Giving your life to Christ is the beginning.
Yes.
Beginning of your journey spiritually. It's not the end. It's not, we bring them to the water and they come up clothed in Christ and boom, we added to the church and let's forget about them. Let's focus on the next person. No, you're constantly training them up. I say it every Sunday, let us walk with you. And I mean that. We as brothers and sisters who have been there, done that, and have had life and lived it, we have to walk with the ones who are just starting out, because that's when the pressure is really going to ratchet up, and where the enemy is really going to put a focus on you because he sees that he's slowly losing you. And so mentorship, having people in your life is so important. And that's why the church exists. Like we are brothers and sisters. We have to want to help bear one another's burdens. Isn't there a scripture somewhere about that?
It's in there.
So yeah, absolutely. But I'm going to get off my soapbox now.
Yeah, no, I'm actually preaching on that. So by the time this comes out, I would have preached on that already, which is crazy. One other thing I want to kind of debrief that Jared said toward the end there, started talking about Ezekiel and the meaning of his name.
God strengthened.
God strengthened, and doing things on your own power versus God's power.
Yes.
That's the whole point of our podcast, is God called Moses in the burning bush.
Yep.
And the times that Moses failed as a leader, as a shepherd of his people, was the time he did it on his own power and not God's.
Right.
Or short-circuited that process. And I mean, the same is true for ministers, is we try to do it on our own. We try to rely on our own strength, our own natural giftedness, and we burn out. And so that's why it's important that we're not the burning out bush, that we're connected to God, to the Spirit.
Yeah. What's a cooler name? The God strengthened or the Lord is salvation?
I would have to say my real name, Garrick, because it means Spear King.
Oh, Spear King. Yeah.
Yeah, but no.
So
all right, Joshua.
That's how cool my name is. Okay. Yeah. The Lord is salvation.
What about Grace? Grace is a cool name.
Here we go.
Yeah. No. All right. Well, that does it all for this week, this episode. Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah. As always.
We're just getting started.
We are. This is episode 2.
That's right.
Can't believe it. It's gone so quick after it started so slow.
That's right.
The planning that goes into this before you can even film is crazy. So
for sure.
But hey, we appreciate you guys tuning in and watching. And we know that our first episode has been out, and all of the wonderful comments and text messages and calls that we received just on the first episode, which I'm going to be honest with you, was I thought our shakiest one. We've recorded several now, but we were real shaky, and I think we've only gotten better. So hopefully, please stick with us and ride with us on this journey. And hopefully we are bringing up some questions and some thoughts, not just for ministers, but leadership and congregants and anybody who's watching. But yes, we really appreciate all the positivity that we've gotten. So, and if you have anything that you think we need to work on, make sure you text Rick about that.
All righty. So that'll do it.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you.
Yeah. And with that, we've come to the end of another fiery episode of Burning Out Bush. We hope today's discussion sparked some thoughts and maybe even a little bit of inspiration for you. Before you go tend to your own metaphorical bushfire, we've got a few small requests. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit that subscribe or follow button on your podcast platform of choice. It ensures you never miss a spark from us. Also, a 5-star review goes a long way in helping other folks find our little corner of the podcast world. Take a moment to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can follow the latest flare-ups and announcements by following us on social media. Find us on all platforms by searching for Burning Out Bush Podcast. Do you have a burning secret, a professional meltdown, or a story about truly hitting rock bottom that you want to share? Well, we want to hear it. Fill out our totally anonymous form, and your story might be featured in a future segment where we read and discuss listener-submitted workplace woes and career cataclysms. You can find the form at our website, burningoutbush.com. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you next time when we fire up a whole new conversation on Burning Out Bush.